This is Peterborough, our first stop in South Australia. And this is where the philosophies of Sydney and Adelaide finally come face to face. Our train runs on rails that are 4 foot 8.5 inches apart, the classic British standard gauge. It's said to be the distance between the wheels of a Roman chariot. This train, which is the connection to Adelaide, the South Australian capital, runs on rails 5 foot 3 inches apart, the Irish standard gauge, probably the length of Brian Boru's sword arm.
How long are we stopping here?
25 minutes.
All the old main lines of South Australia and Victoria were built on the Irish gauge. The only way a train can run direct from Sydney to Adelaide is by getting a completely new set of bogies in the works here. How did they manage to start out English at one end of the line and end up Irish at the other? Well, it was like this. There was an Englishman, an Irishman and a Scotsman. The Irishman was engineer for New South Wales, and he persuaded everyone to standardise on the Irish gauge, the mighty stride of Brian Boru. Then they cut his pay and he resigned. The Scotsman, who succeeded him, persuaded New South Wales to go back to the original idea of standardising on the British gauge, Roman chariot wheels, but they didn't manage to inform the other colonies in time. Well, that was Australia, separate colonies, isolated by distance, trying to coordinate their efforts to the home government in London, 12,000 slow sea miles away. So much for the Scotsman and the Irishman. Where does the Englishman come into the story? Well, I think it was an Englishman who persuaded South Australia, later on in the 19th century, to adopt a third gauge, 3 foot 6, narrow gauge. Here it is, running inside the standard track. Cheaper to build, of course. The line down from Broken Hill was all narrow gauge until they rebuilt it to take the Indian Pacific. This was an entirely narrow gauge junction. Railways of Australia, says the sign. Because separate railways, they remain. 3 different systems have had to get together to run this train. That's why we're waiting, because New South Wales have gone home and taken their loco with them. For the next 1,300 miles or so, until Western Australia comes out to play, we shall be hauled by the South Australians. Well, that's Australia. Still. When you think about it, this smooth stainless steel train is like one of those bland joint communiques they put out at the end of some difficult and protracted negotiations. It's an enactment of national unity. And like most such documents, it's the product of many earlier drafts, many conflicting proposals and counter-proposals. In fact, the original draft for a transcontinental railway wasn't even east to west. It was south to north. It was to connect South Australia with Asia and the rest of the world. Though this first manifesto on wheels was such an extraordinary tangle of compromises, such a confusion of grand ideals and local expediency, that it's difficult to follow where it thought it was going from 1 mile to the next. It set out from Port Augusta back here in 1878. It's going north, up to Darwin. The aim, said the governor of the colony when he cut the first sod, was to open up trade with India, China and Siam. Well, local steam enthusiasts have reconstructed this section of the old line, and it's not going north at all. It's going east. We're making a slight diversion on the way to India to pick up copper from the mines in the Flinders Ranges. But in fact, it was so expensive building the railway through these hills that it turned up and went back without ever reaching the mines at all. Just as well, really, they all went bust.
The line staggered back to the plains to carry wheat from the great new wheatlands that were opening up around Farino. But by the time it got there was no wheat. The wheatlands had dried up. This is Quorn, where the restored steam line ends. Quorn was a railway town, the junction for passengers travelling through from Adelaide to the north. Now the trains for the north bypass all these early meanderings, and Quorn is left high and dry, its pubs still waiting for the weary Maharajas and the thirsty spice traders.